we're in OTAs. We're starting to see players who are going to be, making a step this year. And in my experience, there's always a guy in his second year who takes a giant leap from whatever he was his first year. Like Kittle did it. Fred Warner did it. A lot of players do it. Who do you think will do it this year?
Moody. No, I'm just kidding. Definitely not Moody. No, listen, I've talked about this player a ton. I talked about him all last training camp. I can't, until I see him fail, I'm going to believe in him. And the path has really opened up for him. If you look at the linebacking core, they're in flux. Outside of Fred Warner, they're in major flux. To me, it's Jalen Graham. I just feel like he has an opportunity to start. I don't know what Campbell is at this point. The whole Devondre Campbell thing is interesting to me. A lot of people are really looking at what he said, and he's like, listen, I'm enjoying football again, and I wasn't in the right position with Green Bay, and now I know that I'm going to be used the proper way, and I'm very happy to be here. Go check his tweets. He said literally a year ago the exact same thing about the Green Bay Packers. This is the script for him. This is what he says. So I'm not necessarily fooled by the fact that like all of a sudden he's being put in this position that he wasn't put in with Green Bay, because just a year ago he said the exact same thing. I don't know that he's going to be the starter, even though he's paid to be. He presumably will be. But if this team allows the competition the way that they always have, and they just play the best players, Jalen Graham might find himself on the field very early on in the absence of Greenlaw. And the way that he's built, what he has in his past as far as being a safety, converting to linebacker, I think he fits that mold perfectly. And I think, obviously, outside of Fred Warner, he can be one of the better coverage linebackers that this team has seen in a while. So,
good answer.
I think it's D Winters.
Okay.
Oh, look at you.
Okay.
I didn't even plan this, but I think it's D Winters. I was hard on him first, but in some respects, I do take on the Kyle Shanahan way of evaluation, where I will have to break you down before I build you up. And most players that I end up liking are players that I did not think were as good as I thought they were before I laid eyes on them. And it's on the inverse for most players. If I see a guy where I just fall in love with them, I just think he's the best, he's got so much potential, he ends up falling apart on me, and he's never what I thought he was anyway. And I feel the same exact way about D Winters. When I first saw him, he was a little pudgy. His body wasn't there. And I didn't really get it. I thought that he was a linebacker with, good athleticism, but he just wasn't going to translate to the NFL game. I thought it was too big and too fast for him, and understanding that he was going to struggle with getting past what then was the strongest linebacking core in football with Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner. I thought he was just a novelty piece. However, he has really grown on me, right? He has really good ball skills. And one thing about it is that I did see when he was at TCU is that his closing speed and his sideline to sideline pursuit is ridiculously fast. And that translated into the NFL. I've seen how fast he moves on the field. He pops off the film, right? He can move. But one thing that I like about him is that he is conscientious to be able to get tackles for loss. He's really heady when he gets his eyes around and pass protection. And pass defense. I think that's one of, I'm going against Jesse and the guy that I think will emerge, but in the same way, we both agree that the Devondre Campbell situation is not viable, right? So we both agree that there are two different players under this guy that we feel as though that are poised to be able to push and get him out of here. But I'll say this, we'll be proven right or wrong very soon, because if these two guys can't push Devondre Campbell off the field, then we got a bigger issue.
Or Demetrius Flanagan fouls. Okay, I got another player, and this guy plays offense. And this is just based on watching one practice of OTAs. But to me, he looks like a different guy. Braden Willis. I think this guy, like the 2 tight ends that they drafted last year, Latu may have something, but I think he spent the whole year rehabbing. So I don't see how he could really improve as opposed to Willis, who's been working, developing the whole year. He played a little bit. He looks like you could really see all the work he's done the last year. And now like the depth chart is Kittle and then Eric Sobert and him, Willis. And I think right now Willis would be the number 2 tight end. If Kittle goes down, I think he'd be the starting tight end. Like if he went down for a game. And if Juszczyk went down, I think he'd be the starting fullback for a game. And I think you can do a lot with him. I think he can block. You can put him in motion. He can do like that cheat motion that you see the Dolphins do and the Niners do. And he can beat man-to-man coverage. I don't know how good of a blocker he's going to be. He's smaller than Kittle, but it seems like he's gotten a lot stronger than last year. So I'm looking for big things. But when I say big things, he's not going to have a big role in the offense, but I think he could be a starter if someone goes down.
To me, he was always the Juszczyk replacement. He was the guy that as soon as they drafted him, like his frame tells me he's not here to play just full tight end. He's the Juice replacement. Now, obviously, they kept Juice this year, and maybe that was because they're just not sure with him and they want to see it for another year. But sounds like he's coming out ready to go. I'll throw another name in the hat. What about Beal? I mean, he's got the path. Drake Jackson isn't. Who knows what's going on with him? Still hurt. Can't get on the field. They need somebody to be a pass rusher and be that third guy up, and maybe he can be that player as well.
Yeah, because it looks like Gross Matos is going to be more of an interior pass rusher.
Mm-hmm. I have one more guy too that I think can emerge. Darrell Luter Jr. I think that Darrell Luter Jr. is somebody that's kind of been sitting in the back, and honestly, he may have gotten brought on the team for a different skill set that we don't use anymore. And now he may be the odd man out. They were probably using a bigger corner at the time. And I feel like Darrell Luter Jr., when I see him on the field, first of all, he looks great in his pads. All right, that's one. I know that doesn't mean anything, but he looks the part. That's number one. Number two, and most guys that look the part, that's kind of like where they lean. Like I remember one of the biggest things about looking at Embry, no shade to Embry, but he just looked weird in his pads. It was just like, bro, I don't get this, right? Yeah. So it still does, right? One thing about Darrell Luter Jr. is that I feel like he's very good on special teams, so he's always has a role on this team. He's a bigger, longer, faster corner that we need. Most of the guys that we have are not his size, right? We always are going to need a bigger corner that can run. And that's my last thing, is that my biggest thing with him is that if he can run, because he had those injuries on his legs, he had those hamstring injuries. If Darrell Luter Jr. can run, I think that we got ourselves a kind of replacement in letting Mooney Ward walk, where I could see the Niners saying, well, we really just need one press man guy, who can really get a big press man corner. And, we have that here. So I think Darrell Luter Jr. is somebody that can step on too. And then, also Jair Brown.
Good call. I think we all expect Jair Brown. I think he almost asserted himself in that Super Bowl. And before then, who were you just talking about? I wanted to say one more thing about
Darrell Luter Jr.
Oh yeah. So let's talk about players in their last year on the team. Most likely, Charvarius Ward. He's that bigger press corner. I don't really think Renardo Green is built to if there's anyone who's built like Charvarius Ward on this team, it's Luter. So that'd be very interesting to see if he can assert himself. Because just watching that one practice, it's like Ambry. It's year 3. Is it year 3? Is it year 4 for him?
It's year 4.
He's the worst practice player I've ever seen. It's incredible. Like
I don't be understanding it.
Every single time. This was like a literal game. Dude, this was a literal game that we played last year at training camp. We got like 2-3 days in, and every time he was on the field, look at each other and say, slant. Ambry Thomas on the field is going to be slant completion to whatever receiver he was guarding. It was money in the bank every single time. Every time.
He was just watching too. I just don't understand. And then he gets in games and actually can make some plays, which I don't understand. He's way better in games than he is in practice, in the sense that he doesn't really practice. He observes. Sorry, Ambry.
Yeah.